The drama surrounding the New Orleans Saints and the Cleveland Browns has erupted into something that feels bigger than football. It's a full-blown saga of ambition, betrayal, and desperation, playing out beneath stadium lights and within boardrooms filled with nervous executives. Cleveland woke up expecting the usual Monday melancholy, but what they got instead was an earthquake. News broke that the Saints had made an audacious $21 million offer aimed squarely at Shadur Sanders, the young quarterback who'd become Cleveland's great hope, the man fans thought might finally deliver them from decades of heartbreak. For a city that's known only fleeting success since the 1960s, this rumor hit like thunder before dawn. The possibility that New Orleans had swooped in and stolen their future was too painful to process. It wasn't long ago that Shadur Sanders' name was being whispered like a prayer through Cleveland. Fans clung to him like a life raft, believing he could be the one to end a drought that stretched back to when color television was still a novelty. He was supposed to be the future, young, calm under pressure, and sharp enough to dissect defenses like a surgeon. But as the NFL trade deadline crept closer, the atmosphere inside Cleveland's facility turned tense. Coaches whispered, analysts speculated, and then, like a flash of lightning, the Saints made their move. A $21 million offer, future draft, picks, incentives, everything a struggling franchise could dream of. And just like that, panic replaced hope. Inside the Browns' offices, chaos reigned. Phones rang nonstop, and reports claim Kevin Stefanski clutched his playbook like a drowning man holding a life preserver. No one could believe the audacity of it. New Orleans had kicked the door off its hinges and thrown a bag of gold onto the floor. The janitors stopped mopping, the security guards stopped patrolling, and somewhere in the background, a city collectively sighed. The same heartbreak that's defined generations of Cleveland fans was back, sharper than ever. How could they lose another potential star before he even got his chance to shine? Meanwhile, down south in Louisiana, the mood was entirely different. The Saints' offices were filled with the smoky scent of Celebration cigars. They'd watched Cleveland stumble and fumble through yet another rebuild and saw an opening. To them, Sanders was more than a young quarterback. He was a ticket, back to glory, a chance to inject energy into a team that had been running on fumes since Drew Brees retired. So they played their cards with the confidence of casino high rollers. Their offer wasn't a gamble, it was a statement. They weren't waiting for Cleveland to figure things out. They were taking what they wanted. But in Cleveland, confusion turned to resentment. Reporters demanded answers about why Shedeur wasn't getting first-team reps, why he was sitting behind quarterbacks who couldn't seem to find rhythm or consistency. The official answers were vague and evasive, the kind that only made fans angrier. Stefanski's words about focusing where it matters rang hollow to a fan base that spent decades focusing on disappointment. Every analyst watching from afar said the same thing. The Browns were wasting potential, leaving a Ferrari parked behind a busted minivan. And as Dillon Gabriel continued to turn red zone opportunities into train wrecks, the calls for Sanders grew louder. Then came the viral sideline clip. Sanders muttered something under his breath. No one could quite make it out, but it was enough. The internet exploded. Theories, debates, conspiracy breakdowns, everyone had an opinion, and all of them pointed toward the same question. What in the world was Cleveland doing? As ESPN turned the moment into a soap opera, New Orleans watched quietly, smiling behind closed doors. They knew exactly what they were doing, dangling a lifeline in front of a young star suffocating in chaos. By the time the Saints' offer landed on Cleveland's desk, it wasn't just tempting, it was intoxicating. The Browns' front office stared at that proposal like it was salvation, a trade that could refill their draft coffers and maybe even silence the critics for a season. But deep down, they knew the cost. Trading Shedeur meant handing away the one piece of hope the fans hadn't yet booed out of the stadium. Still, whispers spread like wildfire. Some executives wanted to take the deal immediately. Others swore trading Sanders would destroy the franchise's soul. Meetings grew heated, voices raised, tempers flared. And in the midst of all the noise, one veteran player reportedly muttered that if Sanders was traded while Gabriel stayed, he'd start a GoFundMe to buy the team himself. That's how deep the frustration had sunk. The Saints, meanwhile, couldn't have scripted it better. They became the villains, the slick-talking masterminds of an NFL heist. They wanted Sanders not just for his talent, but for what he represented: youth, accuracy, confidence, and untapped greatness. In their eyes, Cleveland's dysfunction was an opportunity to seize. They'd seen his tape from Colorado, those laser-precise throws that defied defensive schemes and physics alike. They knew they weren't chasing hype. They were chasing greatness. Sanders was a quarterback who could resurrect a franchise, and New Orleans wanted to be the one to crown him. What followed in Cleveland was pure theater. Emergency meetings that lasted all night, coaches whispering behind closed doors, executives arguing so loudly the walls might as well have been shaking. Rumors flew that Stefanski was given an ultimatum: start Shedeur after the bye week or start packing. It was the kind of internal meltdown only Cleveland could produce. Part tragedy, part farce, completely avoidable. And through it all, Sanders remained cool. Cameras caught him walking off the field with a subtle smirk, calm and confident, like a man who already knew his story was about to take a dramatic turn. Analysts couldn't stop talking about it. Some called it the boldest play in recent memory. Others labeled it an inevitable failure. But nearly everyone agreed on one thing: Shadur Sanders was special. He wasn't a system quarterback or a college fluke. His ball placement, his composure, his field awareness, it all screamed franchise leader. One commentator even said, he'd die on the hill believing Sanders was destined to be a legitimate NFL starter. The Saints knew it, the fans could see it, and Cleveland's leadership, well, they were too busy panicking to realize it until it might already be too late.